So we're making the biggest biscuit ever. And I told my brother on the way over here that I gave Jesse Jackson a call. I was wanting to make some rules that you could remember. You know, the three of you that are actually going to watch this video. And so the first rule of making a monster biscuit that tastes good is the measurements have to be right. So the way to remember this is, how to go, Jesse? If you want them to come back, the measurements got to be exact. So, so that's rule number one. So I got 2.5 cups of flour here. I got, what is this? This is a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. I got 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Alright, that goes in there. I got 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Now when you get that in there, wooden spoon, and you mix it all up. The first problem, one of the big problems we had the first time we did this, 25 years ago, was I think I had to have mismeasured the baking soda because it really tasted bad.
That'll do it.
Yeah, it wasn't good, and then so that was not good. So mix all that in, get the dry ingredients all mixed in, and this takes us to our second rule, which you fat bigots aren't going to like. Now I'm not saying you're a bigot that's fat. I'm saying you're a bigot against fat. Okay, so brings us to our second rule. And it's really two parts. And the first part of the second rule is, if you want to do it better, you got to do it with butter. Okay. So I got about 2 tablespoons of frozen butter. This is margarine or fake butter. And then I've got this thing. As soon as my sees me using this, you're probably not going to be happy, but it's for shredding stuff. So I'm going to shred this frozen butter into my mixing thing here without giving too much of my skin. And butter is one of your best fats. You can't do much better than butter. Butter. Yep. All right. And the reason we want it frozen is we don't want it to melt right now. We want it to melt once the biscuits are rising. Yes. This is a lot of work. This is boring. I should dance now or something.
Okay. Just gotta add that you had everything spread out, already measured out.
That's right. I was prepared. I wasn't messing around this time. I've been thinking about this for 2.5 decades, buddy.
Oh, and you've called Jesse Jackson.
I called Jesse Jackson. I did. So actually that brings us to the third rule here about this butter and the other fat is. How did he say it? If you want the flavors to be bold, you got to keep the batter cold. So that's what he said there. So we got the butter in there. Now I told you it was a two-part thing. The second part of the second rule is, if you really want to raise the bar, you got to go and use the lard. So I've got 5 tablespoons of frozen lard here that I've rolled up. This is lard. This isn't shortening. If you don't like lard, then go to something else. But I'm going to use about 4. I'm going to use about 4 teaspoons of this, but I'm going to grind up my lard. Yep. Grind it up. Now let me tell you something else about lard. Lard not only tastes better than shortening, it's cheaper. It has less letters in it. That means it's better. It's a single. I'm a big fan of single syllable foods and words, because that means they were around before. It's like a domain name. If your web address is www. imakebiscuits.com, it means you couldn't get biscuits.com, which means you weren't on the ball. But lard's on the ball because it uses 4 letters. That's a good four-letter word. All right. I think. Use a little bit more. And don't forget rule number 3. If you want the flavors bold, you got to keep it cold, so you don't want to get your hot hands on the lard. Should probably be good. All right. All right. Yes. Sure, my lord. Okay. All right. Oh, by the way, the oven's preheating to 450. Okay. All right.
Just let everybody know what time we're doing this.
Yeah, 5:11 on Christmas Eve. So then with the spoon, we just want to try to get a meal consistency by breaking up our fats into the flour and throw flour around so that you don't wreck the kitchen. All right.
Wasn't there another rule?
Oh, there's more rules. Yes, we'll get to the rules. So we got rule number 1, which is if you want them to come back, the measurements, they got to be exact. The second rule was a 2-part rule. If you want it to be better, you got to use the butter. And the second part of that one, which is if you want to raise the bar, you got to use the lard. And then the third rule was if you want the flavors to be bold, you got to keep the batter cold. All right. And then we get into the 4th rule. So what I'm going to do is make a little valley in here, little thing in there like that. All right. And I got a cup and a quarter. Actually, it's more than a cup and a quarter, but a cup and a quarter of buttermilk. I'll pour that into my little valley there. Our next door neighbor, when we were doing this last time on Springdale Road, Charlie Barnhart, called him Uncle Charlie. He was a pretty good cook, they told us. We used to ask him well, maybe he just told us, but anyway, how he made his food so good, and he told us that he stuck his thumb in it, so he got his hands in it. So, and that takes us to our 4th rule. It says if you want your biscuits to be the best, you got to go and make a mess. So I'm going to stick my hands in here and knead it with my fingers, mixing in the dough like this, and it will make a mess. All right. Can't forget about the rule about keeping the batter cold. So
Just stick your hands in the freezer?
yes, you can freeze your hands. It's helpful. All right. Again, the fingers. You gotta use the fingers. Don't use your spoon on this. It won't mix right. You won't get enough of the. And don't wash your hands the day before you do this. You want to make sure you have flavorful hands. When I posted my practice biscuit, people were complaining that I had put a quarter on it to give perspective, thinking that was dirty. But
because your hand didn't give any perspective at
right,
all.
They had in my hand. They don't know how big my hands are. I might have really huge or small hands. But the truth is, I really hadn't washed my hands in a week before I made that biscuit. So the quarter was really the least of my problems. All right. So once we got the stuff mixed in there just enough, we now got to go to, and you see how it's sticky like that. That means you did it right. When you made a mess. And by the way, that last rule about if you want the biscuits to be the best, you got to make a mess. We actually, Reverend Jackson actually had to call his friend Johnny Cochran on that one to help us out, figuring that one out. All right, put this in here. All right, now the tricky part. We're going to take a little bit of flour and spread that out. Here. Yes, I promise I'll clean this up. I hear you already. Alright, so I'm just going to put some of that flour out there. I'm going to take my dough. Right here. Now, be my spoon. And now take the spoon here, and you can use a roller. I'm not going to use a roller. I'm just going to flatten this out with, oh yeah, sticky. Flatten that out with my spoon. Now, I told you we had a gooey problem when we did this on the first round. So that came up with our fifth rule that says if you want to win, the dough's got to stay thin. So instead of, ooh, yes, that's a big mess. All right, let go. All right.
I think that makes 6 rules.
What's that?
I think that'd be the 6th rule.
Well, the numbers really aren't the important thing. The important thing is my dough is too sticky. All right. All right. Again, you can't forget about the mess. If you're afraid to make a mess in this, you're in trouble. You won't win.
Yes.
All right.
We are doing this while your wife is out of town.
Yeah, my wife is actually across the Pacific Ocean. Otherwise, this would not be happening.
We love you, Mai.
We do love you, Mike. Thank you. All right, so we're going to flatten the dough out. All right. Sticky. All right, then once we've done that, we got to fold it. Now, how many times do you fold it, you might ask? Well, that's a good question. Some people say 4 times, and I like 3. You know, I think 2 is not enough. I think 4 is a little bit too much, and 5 is right out. So, again, so you see how flour is going everywhere. If that's not happening, if things are staying clean, you, my friend, are not really making a biscuit. All right. I'm sticking. So I know all of you accomplished chefs probably have a way to do this without making a mess, but I can guess your biscuits is lame. All right. All right. Now. Yes. All right. So that's 2 pat. Now I gotta get one more in here. Oh, it's sticking. We're sticking. We're in trouble. Talk to me, Goose. All right. Here we go. Oh, we got a big problem here. More flour. Okay. Lay down. All right. Now I couldn't decide how much bigger to make this one than my test biscuit, but I ended up going with 25% growth. All right. Now, get it thin. Patted that and just drove it into the counter. All right. Now we got a problem. All right.
13 minutes of exciting biscuit making.
Hey, this is for posterity. All right. Now, we're going to scoop that up. Now it's all sticky. Come on.
Catch a gear.
Here. That's for Dad. Now we're going to transport my biscuit over to a baking sheet, which I have already covered in lard. And then I'm just going to flatten this guy out. Let go. Get some of this dough off my hands. Alright. So we're going to wait for the oven to preheat, and then we'll stick it in the oven and we'll see what it looks like when it comes out. So we'll see in about 20 minutes, bake for 20 minutes to 450.